Crocheting amigurumi can be something extremely simple, but there are a couple of things here and there that can make our journey way more complicated. So in today's video, I'll talk about 5 big mistakes that beginners commit and sometimes a couple of things more experienced crocheters should remind themselves about, even me sometimes. If you're new here in the channel, I am Bianca from Crocheting, and today I'll talk about 5 common mistakes that beginners commit when they start their amigurumi journey. And some of these mistakes I really wish someone had told me when I started my journey like 9 years ago. So enough chit chat, let's get it started. So mistake number 1, overcomplicating with materials. I know guys, there are so many different accessories in the market nowadays that we get excited and we can get lost sometimes. Buying that special crochet hook that you saw on the internet, or that specific type of yarn that you saw your favorite designer using, can be a bit tempting. I know. However, when you're just starting your amigurumi journey, just keep it simple. Don't get caught up thinking that you need the best crochet hook and the best materials to start right away, because you will define your preferences as you go. Maybe my favorite crochet hook will not be your favorite crochet hook. And I always talk about this here in the channel. My favorite crochet hook is from Tulip. It's not the cheapest ones, but I know lots of people who prefer Clover. I think it's Clover. Sorry for my pronunciation, but there are lots of people who prefer other crochet hook brands. So it's really a matter of preference and you just need to test. And that's why I tell you once again, do not overcomplicate with materials. And since we're talking about crochet hooks, our mistake number 2 is choosing the wrong crochet hook size. A very common pitfall when it comes to crochet hooks is choosing one that it's a bit too small or too big for the yarn that you chose. Talking about my experience here, I started using a sports yarn with a crochet hook that was too big for it. But I eventually switched to a smaller crochet hook size as I started gaining a bit more experience. Something very important to do is check the yarn label before you choose the crochet hook that you're going to use for that project. When it comes to amigurumi, if the label recommends one size, go for 1 or 2 sizes smaller than the one recommended and you're good to go. Just pay attention that you're not using like a very small crochet hook size for the yarn that you chose, so you don't cause any problems in your wrists, like making too much tension when you crochet, because it can also be an issue, okay? But this was not in the script and everything is connected here. Mistake number 3, crocheting too tightly. I know guys that when it comes to amigurumi, we want our stitches as close as possible to make it look more professional, more beautiful, and of course to avoid stuffing to come out of it. But we have to be very attentive when it comes to our tension, so we don't force our wrists and our fingers, our thumb, because it can lead to long-term issues in our articulations and even causing some other problems like tendinitis, for example. And I also know that finding this balance can be really hard because we have to keep our stitches tight, but we cannot force our wrists to avoid causing problems in our articulations. So practice your crochet tension in a way that you have your stitches closed, and a beautiful amigurumi, like my beautiful pig here, you see that my stitches are pretty closed. It has a very professional look because it's beautiful. You don't see stuffing coming out of it. It's very closed, but I didn't force my wrists that much when I was crocheting it. And just so you know, if you want to learn how to crochet this beautiful pig here, I'll leave the link for this tutorial in the description so you can check it later. Mistake number 4, starting with complex crochet patterns. Again, I know how you feel. There are lots of beautiful patterns out there and we want them all. But if you're a beginner, it's better to start with a simple project. Why not start with a basic bow or a simple head of an amigurumi that can turn out as a keychain, for example? Simple projects can help you practice and refine your skills without getting overwhelmed. Mistake number 5, incorrect stuffing is one of the biggest mistakes I see beginners commit, and sometimes even a bit more experienced people commit as well. Even too much or too little, because this can make your amigurumi look lumpy or misshapen. And I know it can be tricky to simply explain those things, and again, it demands practice, but it's important to find a balance. We have to make sure that the stuffing is even, so you don't distort the shape. In the tutorial that I teach how to crochet this beautiful pig here, I also give lots of tips and tricks about sewing, embroidery, and yeah, everything. Actually, it's basically a course for free, guys. But one of the things that I teach in this series of videos that I teach how to crochet this pig is stuffing. And it's really interesting because in this video I show you what happens if you stuff incorrectly, and also about shaping your amigurumi correctly. Because if I want the head of the amigurumi to be round, I have to shape it correctly and also shape it with my hands. I have an example here of a simple amigurumi ball. It's round, it's perfectly round, but if I press it like this with all my strength and I release it, it's not that round anymore. Yeah, I think I changed the shape a little bit. Or even if I press like this. Oh, now it's good. So for example, now I pressed it like this, and look, I changed the amigurumi completely. So of course, stuffing is important, but we also have to shape it with our hands the way that we want it to be. So I stuffed it correctly, and there is a lot of stuffing here. There is no need to stuff it more than I did in this case, but I want it to be round. So I have to do this. And now it's round. And if you have an amigurumi doll, for example, I have my witch here, Betty the Witch. I love this amigurumi, and you can see that I will remove the hat because it will be easier to show you. You see that she's very firm. Everything is firm, everything is well stuffed, and her neck is like well fixed here to the head of the doll. But if you have a doll, for example, that the head looks a bit floppy, consider using a wooden stick or even a hot glue tube. I've seen lots of people using it, a hot glue tube in the neck. There are other techniques to make it firm enough so the head is not floppy, but this is not the goal of the video. I'm just saying that there are a couple of things that we can do to make our amigurumi look more beautiful. But remember that if you use a wooden stick, that is not suitable for small children, okay? But now I want to hear from you. If you had to give an advice for someone who's just starting their amigurumi journey, what would this be? Well, and if you are indeed one of those beginners who are just starting the amigurumi journey and you probably don't have an advice to give to anyone, just click this playlist here and learn how to crochet this beautiful amigurumi pig, because this is a complete amigurumi course for free.